Hi, Alissa.
Hey, Katie.
Oh, welcome to episode 302.
We're going back to school today.
Economics. Economics?
Economics.
No, economics.
That's like me.
That's about
an
right.
algorithm.
Economics. That's how excited I am about this topic.
Algorithm versus a logarithm.
Yes, right. It's algorithm. But today we're talking about economics.
Economics. Yes.
Oh.
I'm taking you back to 2009.
Oh.
When I was working on my master's degree and I was taking all my econ classes. And I was actually going to bring a visual aid, but didn't want to be wasteful. So every morning I had my econ class Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
And it was at 7:30 in the morning.
It's really early to talk numbers.
It was, yes. And I did not love my finance and accounting classes, but I loved the econ classes because I just found it very interesting. Keep in mind, this is also before I knew I was going to be in real estate at all.
And it was 2009?
Mhm.
I love that you were learning about economics in a crisis time.
Sure. Yeah. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
But I showed up every day at 7:30 with my lemonade iced tea monster energy drink and my white chocolate macadamia Cliff Bar.
Okay.
And that was my breakfast
Ready
of
to go.
champions. And like, it's almost like those two things attached to my senses. And when I think of econ, I can taste the lemonade and the Cliff Bar.
Okay, great.
So the whole time I was making notes for this episode, I was sort of like back in college.
I love it.
I wore my glasses for YouTube.
I know, you look very official.
Mhm.
I can't wait to hear all of your knowledge.
Okay, well, here's how I have it broken down. We have a lot to get into today, class.
Okay, great. Let's hear it.
Okay, today we're going to talk about 3 different avenues of what is going on in our world as it pertains to real estate and all the questions that we seem to be getting not only from buyers, but from agents.
Right. That is the reason we're doing the episode. We're
Yes.
not just here to bore you.
No, and it won't be boring.
This is to help you answer those questions.
I think I would have been a really good professor.
I believe that.
So I have it broken down into, we're going to talk about understanding a recession first.
Okay.
Then we're going to talk about interest rates.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about tariffs.
Great.
And these are the 3 topics today, and they all commingle together.
Yes.
And real estate is tied into all of these avenues.
Yes. And please stay tuned at the end because we'll take this down to the basis level.
Yes.
So that if you feel confused by what we go through at the end, we're going to make it even more simple.
Our goal is that by the end of this episode, I want you to be able to explain to your clients what is going on in the world in plain English.
Thank you. Because I will say, I am the type of person who does not like to speak on a matter if I'm not fully educated.
Mhm.
And if I feel like I'm confused, then I get a little nervous about saying anything.
Correct.
And I want to be able to speak intelligently.
Yes, and the good news is every day is different. And so the answer to the question, how's the market? What's the rate today? It's like there isn't a right or wrong answer really.
Right.
It's all very different. Running your real estate business on guesswork, sticking with a clunky CRM out of guilt, feeling like you're always behind on follow-up, lead gen, or even just emails?
It might be time for a system audit.
This month in Hustle Humbly Community, that is exactly what we are doing.
This isn't about adding more tools. It's about simplifying, deleting, and growing what actually works for you.
So jump in community now to join us for the live Zoom on May 20th. Find the details at hustlehumblypodcast.com/membership.
Okay, so you're starting us on recession.
Yeah, we're going to start talking about a recession. And actually, Jay Scott, he has the podcast Bigger Pockets.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
Real estate podcast. Okay. I listened to some of his stuff and took so many good notes.
Oh, great.
So he would also be a really good resource if you needed more information. But the main thing that we need to know is that when people ask us, like, how is the real estate market? We cannot really answer that question without answering how is the economy.
Right.
So that's why econ is important. Okay. Now, one thing that I found was very interesting is, did you know in the last 160 years, we've had in the United States about 35 recessions?
Amazing.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge number.
Well, because the economy shrinks and grows.
Always.
Shrinks and grows.
Yes.
It's like a little inchworm.
Yes, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, strengths and growths.
That is what the economy is. And recessions typically last 12 to 18 months.
Okay, good to know.
At a time. So guess what? It won't last forever. We just need to hang in there. But the good news is that even through the 35 recessions, real estate has stayed relatively uncoupled from the rest of the recession behavior.
Okay, can you tell us why that is?
Yes, I can.
Please.
So when there's a recession, stocks, bonds take a hit. People sell quickly or like, oh no. But housing isn't really affected per se because they're not going to say, oh, Wall Street's gone. We need to sell the house and live outside.
Right. You have to live somewhere.
Yeah, you have to live somewhere.
Yeah, it's the only investment that's also serving a purpose.
Correct.
In your actual needs as a human.
Yeah. You know, Jennifer Richardson in my office owns dozens of rental properties. And she always told me that, you know, if the stock market crashes, you're left with a piece of paper.
Yeah.
If the real estate market crashes and the values go down, you still have a structure.
Yeah, it's a thing.
You still have a house. You can live in it. You can start a business out of it. Like you can use it. It's tangible.
Right.
Now there were 3 or 4 recessions where real estate took more of a hit, and the top 2 were actually in 2008.
Yes,
which
I was
you
there
lived through as a realtor.
Yeah.
And the Great Depression.
Okay.
So those are pretty major instances. And even those didn't last forever.
Right.
So it's really about understanding that it's cyclical. It's not all doom and gloom. And that real estate, which is our focus of, you know, what we do, is more protected than others. So the other thing that's very interesting that I did not realize is that there is actually not a universally agreed upon definition of a recession. So depending on who you talk to, they may say we're in a recession now.
Yeah.
Some think we have been in a recession since COVID.
Okay.
Some think we are about to enter one soon.
Yes.
That's why when your client says, are we in a recession?
Who knows?
Yeah.
They're looking at a bunch of different numbers and data.
Correct.
It's not just like, oh, the jobs report says this, that means recession.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of things they're looking at.
Yes.
And they're not all good or bad at the same time. Some things go up and you can't make sense of it while others are going down.
Yeah.
That's my problem with the economy. I'm like, it's like people are like, well, we're not, you know what it reminds me of? Have you ever had an electrician come to a house to fix something? And they're like, well, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, is this not a black or white matter?
Right.
Do we not know how electricity works?
Yeah.
That is how I feel about the economy. I'm like, does no one actually know? They're not sure.
It's also why I struggle with it as well.
Yeah.
Because I want the right answer.
Yeah.
Just tell me the truth.
A bunch of shades of gray here.
So much gray.
A lot of gray.
And everybody's personal experience is different.
Yeah. And I think it's like, if we're calling the economy like a science experiment, there are an awful lot of variables.
Oh,
too many. So many variables. So, okay, keep going on your recession.
Okay. We're going to use an econ term. Are you ready?
I can't wait.
GDP.
Okay, of course.
Gross domestic product.
I did know what that was.
This measures how much output a country is doing.
Okay.
Economists like to see this stay between 2 and 3%.
Okay.
We're not going to get into why. Just know that number.
That's just...
So if you read that GDP is 1%, you know
that's not what they want.
That's not what they want. Okay. That's all that really matters. We're just keeping it very basic.
I also would like to point out that an economy is spoken of like it is an entity with health.
Yeah.
The health of the economy.
Right.
It's good, it's bad, it's sick, I don't know.
Yeah. Are we thriving? Are we not?
So if we're at 1%, no bueno.
No good. Okay. Now, when GDP is growing, people are employed.
Right.
There's more need for housing. They feel financially secure to buy.
Okay.
But here's the thing, y'all. When you're watching the news and you're hearing about GDP, that is like such a huge number for a country.
Right.
That is going to change per state.
Right.
Per city.
Yeah.
So you can actually look up your local GDP.
Okay, interesting.
And see, do we have plants coming to our area? Do we have...
Some people have no clue what you just said. plants. We live in a place with oil and gas industry, so we have a lot of industrial plants.
Not green plants.
Not nurseries.
Not plant nurseries.
But yes, do you have some sort of industry? Like I always ask people, oh, you're from so-and-so. What is the industry there?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that your town or your area does? What do people do for work?
Yeah.
Because that's when you'll find those ghost towns where they used to have like a steel mill and then it shut down and then the town is
Nothing anymore.
No, you got to have something.
So you do have to be careful speaking broadly and vaguely. That's why I don't like when people ask me, how's the market? I like to say, depends. What neighborhood are you in?
Right.
Because even neighborhoods are varying. Days on market, supply and demand.
Right.
However, a recession as a nation does generally align with GDP. That is something that the majority do agree on.
Great.
As this episode airs, we are in a season where a lot of people are struggling.
Can we please talk about the day that we're recording this? Did you put 2 and 2 together?
April 15th.
Today is tax day. We are recording an episode on money and the economy on literal tax day.
Feels right.
Now, as you're listening to this, it's mid-May.
Yeah, it's been about a month. So, yeah, I mean, every single person, I actually read a lot. There's like a new term called something like a personal recession.
Oh.
Where it affects everybody differently.
Okay.
You may be in a field that is affected by the economy more than somebody that has a different type of job.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have, friends who have been like, look, my job is cutting back a lot. We're going to hot dogs at least once a week for dinner night. Like we're replacing Italian night with hot dog night just to save and maybe not use the car so much for gas. They're everybody's personal recession, depending on the economy, is going to be different.
Okay.
Depending on their situation.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting to look at it as, a personal thing. But as we mentioned before, other assets are way more affected than real estate during a recession. Housing is not just an investment. Sometimes, it is an investment, but that's not to say the only people that buy houses are investors.
Right.
People who invest in stocks, they're all investing.
Correct.
People who buy a house are buying it to live in it. Is it an investment? Yes. But was their goal to invest in it for retirement? It might have just been
the house you live in, it's serving a purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like most owners of real estate own it because they need a place to live. The majority of people that own real estate own it because they need a place to live, not because of investing.
Okay.
And so you just don't sell it like stocks when the market's down. You tend to stay put, which is the opposite behavior that we can see.
Right. But I guess then the market also, if you're not going to spend money, maybe you wouldn't buy because you were uncomfortable. You would just be like, I'm going to stick in this house a minute.
And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
For sure.
Especially coming off of COVID when interest rates got so low.
And everyone who thought they might want to move were like, let's move.
Yeah. Let's just do it now.
Now's the time.
I love the meme that is a small bedroom with like 3 sets of bunk beds in it. And it says like, show that you bought your house at a 3% interest rate without
because they're just saying it.
They're just like, we're not moving. Kids. We're just
you will all live in this one bedroom.
Yeah, we're gonna make it work. We have a roof over our head, and we're not gonna go pay this astronomical amount for a house.
Right.
So one thing I wanted to say to our realtor friends during this time is that while we are talking about how real estate as a whole stays pretty stable during a recession, that doesn't mean that real estate as a career stays stable during a recession.
Right.
As realtors, during a time when people are staying put, that is our livelihood.
Well, the economy impacts the interest rate, which you're going to get to, I know next. And that does change people's minds about whether they're going to buy or sell.
Yeah.
For sure.
So while this is good news for real estate.
Yeah.
If you are a brand new agent or an agent that doesn't have savings or support or a secondary income or a spouse or something like that, going through a recession unprepared could be hard for the real estate agent.
For sure.
Because there's not going to be as much traction. I think if you're a seasoned agent, or if you have regular business, or if you have savings or secondary income, if you can just sit tight through this period, it always comes back around. Our little inchworm.
It's just coming. It's coming
going to
along.
come back around.
Slowly.
But if that's not the case for you, you're going to need to be preparing appropriately.
Okay.
So all of that to say, real estate's going to be okay. You know, people buy and sell stocks and bonds due to the market, but people buy and sell houses usually due to life events. So life events trump the market when it comes to real estate.
Love it.
Isn't that interesting?
Very, very.
Yeah. If you're wondering about your local area, there's 3 things to look at.
Oh, good. Tell us.
Population growth or decline, employment growth or decline, meaning are there businesses coming, are businesses leaving, and then wage growth or decline. Those are the 3 main driving factors of how your economy is doing.
Tell us the health.
At a local.
Are we healthy?
In Baton Rouge.
We're checking the vitals.
Yes, we're just trying to check the vitals.
And what is your assessment of Baton Rouge?
I think it is.
Did you check those 3 numbers?
I did a little bit of research, and Ascension actually has a lot going on. We have some big things coming. I think we're going to be, any capital city is generally going to be okay.
Because running the government is part of the industry.
Yes.
Like people have to come here to do the governmental work.
Yeah. It's like we need to be on the lookout for our small towns during this time.
Yeah. What are we going to do for them?
Yeah, I don't know. Pray for them.
Pray for them.
We're here to educate them.
Oh my God.
We're here to educate them. We're here to help them get prepared. We're here to help them think long term.
Our thoughts are with you.
Yes. But now you're going to be equipped with this knowledge.
Well, right. And if you're going to relocate, you want to take this into account.
Yeah.
Which is probably helpful.
I would think.
If you're like, well, this place isn't working out for me. Here are the 3 things you need to check on where you're going. Okay. What's next?
Okay. So public sentiment is a huge thing that has become even bigger as of the last decade or so.
Okay.
Because public sentiment is basically the public's confidence in how the world is going.
Right.
As news outlets and social media are doomsday announcers, that greatly hurts public sentiment and confidence.
Yeah.
That's why people have stopped watching the news. They don't want to hear about it. They're afraid of losing their job. They start spending money differently. They just believe we're heading. They said that the fake news can make the public believe we're having a recession, which will actually cause the recession.
All right.
It's like this whole chain of
I'll give you another analogy.
Okay.
Like, not an analogy, but an example. Okay, so let's say you're pulling comps in a neighborhood for a buyer to write an offer.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just say this is a neighborhood that has 600 houses and there's comps aplenty. Okay. For your buyer, you're going to pull the comps that make the most sense, but that show the lower price, right?
Yes.
If you want to back up a lower offer. If you were representing the seller and you were pulling comps in the same neighborhood, you would pull the numbers that show the house is worth more money. You see? What is your purpose? What is your purpose? Okay. Well, it's the same with the news, any media outlet, any influencer, any person that reshares information. I think y'all are all aware there's information aplenty out there.
So much information.
And people like to cherry pick data to support the narrative they want you to hear.
Yeah.
So if I want to make you afraid of literally anything, I can find a number to make you afraid of that.
Yeah.
It's very simple, actually. So we just have to be very informed consumers of any type of media.
Which is why even refreshing for this episode was helpful to me, because I think I've been at a place where I'm like, I don't even want to look at it because it's just so confusing.
Right.
But if we can
They're
stick
intentionally
to the
trying to confuse you.
Yeah, it's very confusing. They're winning.
And I don't know what our percentage of listeners are female, but it is a big advocacy of mine that we need to try and understand this.
Yeah.
We're not just going to be like, I'm just shutting it off and I'm going to be like, who cares? And someone can just tell me what to do. No, we're going to learn.
Yeah, we're going to learn and we're going to know what to look for.
Okay, love it.
And do our best to focus on the facts and cut through the clutter.
Okay, love it.
So we're going to move on really quickly to CPI, Consumer
Price Index.
Yes, Consumer Price Index. Okay. The reason this is important is that 80% of the economy is based on consumer spending.
Yeah, we have to spend money to keep the economy.
Yes. So CPI helps us know how much are things costing and what is the power of my dollar?
Right.
For example, did you send me this example about the candy bar?
Yes, it was in our wrap-up notes.
I thought that was a great example. That is CPI. So if your allowance of $1 used to buy you 2 candy bars a week, now it only buys you 1 candy bar a week, the same dollar. That is CPI going down.
Right.
It's not good.
Not good.
Okay, there's 2 big companies that speak to this a lot in the news. And they're also a pretty good indicator of how CPI is going. And that's Dollar General and Walmart. They make statements on like the patterns that they're seeing and what people can afford. Also, Delta released a statement that they're seeing it also because they are seeing way less first-class bookings.
So people are still flying, but they're like, I'll take the cheaper seat.
Yes.
Okay.
They still have to get where they're going, but they're not splurging anymore. So I just thought that was interesting. But as the cost of living increases, property values usually are also increasing.
Okay.
However, if the wages don't increase with it, if we don't all go together, that's where the problem happens. And they were saying that's kind of what happened during COVID.
Yeah, okay.
Prices and everything shot up, but the wages did not. So we're sort of like in this stagnant.
Right, then your cost of living is
Cost of living is so high right now.
Okay.
So it's just a lot, you know? And when that happens, the banks raise interest rates. Isn't that exactly what happened?
Yeah, I guess.
And it's making people save their money.
Yeah, they want,
instead of spend their money.
Right.
So there's less housing activity. They're putting all their kids in one bedroom. They're like, you're just going to make it work.
Right.
I don't mind the commute to work that much.
Yeah.
I bought this house during COVID when I wanted chickens, but now COVID's over and I'm back downtown working in my office again, but I'm still going to live here.
Because I can't.
Because I can't move or don't want to because of the interest rates, which is a great segue into the interest rates.
Oh, gosh. This is where we really need to put on our thinking caps.
Yeah.
Everyone get your notepad and your pen. Because this is important information.
This is the question
that your clients are asking you.
Everybody's
You need to sound informed.
Yes.
Okay, go.
And you reached out to Jamie Taylor, who's one of our local mortgage lenders here, to just pick her brain. So some of this information is from her.
Yeah.
I talked to another lender the other day and then just general research.
Right.
So that's where this next level of information is coming from.
Give it to us.
Everybody I talked to when asking about the interest rates has basically said they've never seen anything like what we've been experiencing the last 5 years.
Okay.
From normal to super low to super high, not super high, but high compared to how low it was. It's a big difference.
Yeah, and it makes me feel like it's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
Because they're always like, when I started real estate 20 years ago, they were like, rates are so low. Y'all, they were 6. Rates are so low. Then they would go down to 5. Rates are historic. I never heard the word historically low so many times. Rates are historically low. Then they went down more and more. And more. And then when they got to 3, there were some 2s during COVID.
There were some opportunities.
Like, this is unheard of. And I'm like, y'all keep telling me this for 20 years. It kind of seems consistent.
That's how I felt with the marketing of it too. Like, now is the time to buy. And
don't
I'm like,
miss this.
That message loses its wow factor when you're screaming it all day, every day.
For years on end.
Yeah. Like, okay, we get it. And we no longer believe you.
Good news. We've gone in the other direction now.
Guess what? It was the right time to buy.
It was the right time to buy.
For a minute there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like trying to figure out the interest rates. I also think someone said many people predicted that Q1 of 2025, the rates were going to just drop.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
No.
We are in May right now. At this recording, we're in April. In fact, I needed to see because the Feds are meeting in May.
Okay.
And at that meeting, they're supposed to discuss how the rest of the year is going to look. Someone said that they are going to be hoping to get down to 6% by the end of 2025.
I will tell you this. I trust no one right now.
I know.
I don't believe you. That's sweet. That is super sweet.
6 isn't that far.
6 is basic. I mean, we flirted around 6 for the last few months.
We're back at 7 at the time we're recording.
So I'm like, okay, great. We think it'll be at 6. Great. Tell me how.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what, so anytime a client asks me, what do I know about the interest rates? I tell them, I just wait for the feds to have a meeting and I see what they say. And I tell my clients, I am tracking their meetings and what they're discussing, and that's all we can base it off of.
I want to step in here really quickly because I want you to probably read this section because the reason I reached out to Jamie to just like talk me back through it, because I've read like her very thorough emails for years with like charts and graphs and what's happening with the bond market. And it was my rudimentary understanding that when the economy was bad and stocks maybe went down, that money would flood into the bond market. And when they were buying these bonds, investors, big ones, foreign ones, all the kinds, then the interest rate for mortgages would go down. Right. And she explained, and you can maybe read through some of what she told us.
Yeah, so you're right. Usually, when the stock market drops, investors move their money into government bonds because government bonds are considered a much safer investment than stocks.
Okay.
This allows the yields to go down, and that actually did happen for a little while. However, as the new tariff policies started making announcements, instead of buying U.S. bonds, investors were purchasing bonds from other countries like Germany. So then what was supposed to happen as normal behavior didn't happen. So some think that it's because China and Japan, who are the biggest owners of U.S. bonds, are being hit with tariffs that they're selling off their holdings.
Right.
I know that was very econ-y sounding.
They're losing confidence in the United States economy.
Yes.
That's what is happening.
Investors are feeling like while we are in a season of uncertainty, they are going to invest elsewhere.
Which has never happened for decades.
Correct.
Before. This is not normal behavior.
This is new territory.
So she had trouble. She was like, well, here's an article. She's like, I don't know.
I know.
What I would have normally told you is not what's happening right now.
And that's not just how the lenders are feeling. That's how economists are feeling. Everybody's trying to predict and plan the best that they can. And if it continues, if it pushes the U.S. bonds, which it is, that will drive rates even higher. So it's something that we need to understand and keep an eye on to truly understand.
What if I told you the secret to efficient client management was free
and simple and keeps everything in one place?
That's exactly what Alissa's updated Trello tutorial delivers.
This is the system I use for every single transaction, and it saves me hours.
No more digging through emails or juggling a million checklists. In fact, she's even going to teach you how to use it with the Hustle Humbly transaction checklist.
Just one beautiful Trello board that keeps your business running smoothly.
Grab the tutorial now at hustlehumblypodcast.com/Trello.
Because simple systems equal happy agents.
Let me read. I was reading this article from Sharon McMahon, who has the preamble. Sharon McMahon is on Instagram and social media as America's government teacher.
Okay.
She breaks it down, and it's very interesting. But this was a guest author, Alissa, and she said, it's common misconception that U.S. simply calls on other countries to borrow money. In reality, the government sells treasury bonds, essentially IOUs that promise to pay investors back with interest. For decades, these bonds have been considered the world's safest investment because the U.S. has excellent credit, has never missed a debt payment, and has been the global financial leader. But this week that we're recording, something unusual happened. The interest rate or yield on a 10-year treasury note surged roughly 50 basis points, meaning the U.S. government suddenly has to pay significantly higher interest rates to borrow money. Okay? This directly affects you because these are the things that determine mortgage rate, car loan rates, credit card interest, student loans, and small business loans.
I remember I went to Florida for our Top of the Ladder company conference. And we invited some of the Florida offices to join us. And so I'm in this room with about 200 agents that are top producing agents.
Okay.
We have an economist come talk to us. And he says, who in here can tell me the number one indicator of how the interest rates are behaving? and it was like crickets. And then somebody would like say something and he'd be like, close, but no, close, but no. And then Bob Merrick, he's, you know, in his 80s, was the owner of my company at the time, said the 10-year treasury bond. And the guy went, bingo.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, I don't even know really what that is. But the 10-year treasury yield shows how expensive it is to borrow money. It's basically our country's interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows how investors are feeling about the economy. So you need to just store that little fun fact in your head. I know I have. It's been years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it all comes back around to determine what is our interest rate. There's not one thing that determines
when
what
the
our interest
feds
rate
meet,
is.
they can say whatever they want. They can lower the rate. They can raise the rate. It wouldn't matter if people weren't putting money into the bond market.
Right.
So it's not a direct correlator. It's just an indicator like many of these other things.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
There is, again, when somebody asks you these questions, there is no one right answer.
And when a client comes to you and says, well, I saw the Fed lowered the rate, that isn't lowering the mortgage rate.
Correct.
That's not what that is.
No.
That's not what that is.
Mm-mm. Other factors, if in combination, will follow that pattern.
They're trying to impact the overall economy.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
Yes. So mortgage rates are the price of borrowing money. And just like the price of gas or groceries can go up and down, so can interest rates. And there's several things that influence them.
Okay.
We don't need to dive in. We've already talked about some of this today. But the main things that do influence the rate, since it's not all one thing, is the Federal Reserve, also known as the Feds.
Okay.
It is important to follow their meetings or follow a lender that follows their meetings, and we'll send you the snippets, okay? Inflation, we already talked about inflation.
Mm-hmm.
The bond market, which we just finished talking about, and how the 10-year treasury bond is a safe investment backed by the U.S. government unless it's not, this is one of the first times in our history.
We're in uncharted territory.
Yeah, we are. So it's very interesting. The economy affects the interest rates. And then lastly, which I love that is on here, is your personal situation, your credit score, your down payment. How much do you need to borrow? I think that it can be very overwhelming when we feel we don't have any control.
Right.
And we need to remember, and we need to remind our buyers that you can control some of this.
Yeah.
Can you be a good saver? Can you really work on getting your credit as high as you can get it to get the best rate available to you?
Yeah.
There are things that you can do to help this out.
Okay.
So in short, big picture economics influence the general direction of mortgage rates, okay? And then your personal finances determine what you are personally offered and comfortable with.
As a buyer. Of anything.
Yeah.
Especially a mortgage.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could give any advice to any agent or consumer right now, it would be that it is important that you are with a seasoned loan officer.
Yeah.
That is following these things and that can guide and direct you and keep you up to date.
Oh, yeah.
The market is so volatile right now that there is actually little random opportunities to lock in a really good rate if you're watching it.
Right. So that's interesting. When I talked to Jamie to get some of this info on Friday, April 11th, because I don't know what's happening when we listen to this.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, I'm having to call my buyers this afternoon and tell them that I think we need to do 90-day rate locks because it's so uncertain right now.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where we are mid-May, but I thought that was very fascinating. She's like, this is not something I've ever done before.
Well, normally they're like, let's do a 30-day. Like the sooner you can lock it, the better your rate is.
Yeah.
But now because of the uncertainty.
Now she's just like,
let's go to 90. And if your loan officer isn't keeping an eye on these little pockets, then, it could be problematic. One of the things I read was that historically, some of Wall Street's best days were directly sandwiched between the worst days. It's because of how volatile it is, which is why it is so important that you do have a lender that will call your buyer and say, hey, I just got to the office. I checked the rates. We need to lock now.
Right.
This is the day. Today is the day. It's urgent.
It's an urgent matter.
Because we don't do that as our full-time job. So you need to make sure that you're working with a lender who does. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, honestly.
Okay, good. We're about to move into tariffs.
I'm going to try and keep my
you just be quiet.
Together.
And I actually found this whole thing very interesting.
Okay, let's hear what you found.
Just because we touched on tariffs in school, but like, it wasn't a big thing like it is today. Okay. So the main thing to know about tariffs, yes, the whole country will be affected. However, every market is going to be affected differently. At this moment, as federal jobs are being cut, DC, the surrounding areas, Maryland, all of those little states over there, they are going to be affected a lot because 50 to 60% of the layoffs are happening in that area.
Okay, but that's not related to a tariff.
That's just like the political climate and tariff. So tariffs have a huge impact also on materials and inflation. Okay, so lumber, steel, appliances, like all these things are about to get very expensive. But here's the thing. We don't know how expensive. And it's going to fluctuate a lot, okay? And when we don't know how much things cost, it's very hard to plan ahead.
Sounds like a problem with consumer confidence, yes?
A very big problem, okay? So business owners are having to do basically 2 proposals every single time they are making a business plan.
Okay.
So you have different options here. While we are in this midst of uncertainty, you can just freeze, don't do anything, don't move, live off of your savings, hope it lasts, or you can continue your business, but you have to make sure that you're prepared for the best and the worst case scenario.
Okay.
So tariffs can impact pricing anywhere from 5 to 40%.
Or more.
40 is where they've kind of been talking about it being the most.
All right.
The reason this is important, so one of the guys, Jay Scott, actually, he said he was about to start this huge multi-million-dollar apartment complex.
Okay.
And he was getting investors. And it's like during this time. Okay. Well, the investors were like, yeah, well, we just want to see your last 10 years of performance to know that we feel comfortable investing with you. And he was very honest. He said, I will be more than happy to show you my stats from 2010, 2015, 18, 19, 20, 21. And he was like, they're great. He goes, but you should not be impressed by those stats because a monkey could have done it.
Yeah.
Was his exact words. He was like, it's different now. It's very different now. we're going to have this as a quote because I just loved it so much. See, I put it in pink.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
When the market is working with you, it's hard to fail.
Even as a realtor.
When things get interesting is when the market's working against you. And at that point, only the resilient will thrive.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot freeze. You must have a plan. This is not a time for best case scenario planning. This is a time to underpromise and overdeliver.
Okay, I love it.
And I thought, what more of a message do agents need to hear than that right now? And, you know, I feel for those agents who got licensed in 2020 because it was fairly easy to sell a house and to have an abundance of business for 2 years in 2020, 2021.
This is like such a flashback for me.
I know, to 2008.
Same exact. Because
Share that.
When I got my license was the end of 2005, and we're talking about the height of the real estate bubble. You could get a mortgage called a no-doc loan where you literally had to prove nothing. You could just say, my income is $150,000 and they would hand you a mortgage. Have fun. Enjoy your house.
That's wild.
Because it was just wild.
No regulations. Just
none.
Yeah.
Zero at all. Here you go. Have some money. You want a second house? Here's some more money. Enjoy.
Wow.
Enjoy. So 2006 was still like that, and the crash happened right after that. And especially in our local market, our hyper-local market, Katrina had happened. So we had a bunch of people flood to the Baton Rouge market.
Yeah, so Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2007.
And that really, in 2005.
I meant, 2005.
So that really shook out. It wasn't right away. Like all the way through 2006, as things are starting to get sketchy in the world, like in the country, and the bubble is bursting, if you will, we were kind of buoyed by that for a couple of years. So we didn't really feel it until 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you saying you were so new when Katrina happened and you were on phone duty and the phones just rang and rang and rang.
Yeah, you could get a client every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And COVID had some similar characteristics.
Yeah, people are just desperate to use those interest rates and buy something.
I mean, just our podcast email alone has shown us that we've gotten many agents who were like, I got licensed in 2020. I had a great first 2 years. I thought, man, I'm just really good at this.
Yeah.
And now I'm so slow.
Yeah.
And it is hard because it's like you didn't have that slow time in the beginning to get your systems in place, to get your processes in place. So you're sort of having to backtrack a little
now
bit.
You just have to weather a storm that you did not know was coming.
Right. So when the market's working with you, it's hard to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
But when the market is working against you, only the resilient and the wise will thrive.
Mm-hmm.
During the next few years, we may see more manufacturing coming back to the U.S. because of the tariffs. Of course, there's pros and cons to this. There are some things that need to stay in our country to keep us alive and well. Medical devices, medicine, computer chips. Like, we don't want to be at the mercy of other countries having 100% ownership of those things because we could be cut off. So it's important. However, obviously, we outsource for reasons. There's price, there's quality, there's resources.
There's skilled labor that we don't have here.
Right. And then there's also like bad labor that, shouldn't be supported. So there's all sorts of things that are pros and cons about where you get your stuff from.
Right. And the theory of raising a tariff in order to get the manufacturing to come back into the United States is great, but it actually takes like a decade or more to build that. So it's not like tomorrow.
No.
Great, we'll open our factory tomorrow.
Yeah.
Chips are being built.
Here we go.
All the cars are built here. All the computers are built here. It's all here. Woohoo! Like, that's not how it works.
No, it's not. This is a
super long game.
And
I think it is important to note that, of course, the U.S. has an economy, which we've already said has been so stable for so long that foreign investors put money into it. But there is also a global economy. Mm-hmm. These things are all connected.
All connected.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
I was reading in the blueprint, though, that we really are going to need to pay more attention to cities that are highly dependent on new construction.
Because those costs will go up.
They are going to be more affected by the tariffs than an established city that is primarily resale.
Makes sense.
So the builders are facing hikes, and there's also the rising cost of homes. So the builders are estimating that the new tariffs will raise the cost of building a single house on average about $9,200.
Okay.
That's as of right now. Okay. So while the housing market in general is mostly resale, but I think about Lake Charles, got hit by that hurricane and basically had to rebuild their whole city. So there's situations like that where you're having to rebuild. And then there's situations where things are still developing.
Yeah.
So if you are in a new construction area, commercially or residential, you're going to feel the tariffs more as a real estate agent than a city that's mostly resale.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at how much are these things? How are builders even pricing the houses? Which goes back to, I don't think I finished that thought. Builders even are going to need to be way overestimating and having we're probably going to see some new price addendums included in all new construction contracts because they're basing everything off of today.
Yeah, they don't know what it will be.
So if it's something that must be ordered, who knows?
Yeah.
The future is very uncertain. And then the blueprint also listed the states that will be most likely impacted because of their percentage of new construction homes.
Okay.
So Idaho was the first, 40% new construction.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot. North Carolina, 33% new construction. Delaware, 31%. Utah, 28%. Nebraska, 28%.
Interesting.
So those are our top 5 states that are going to be most affected as they continue to develop.
Okay.
So if you're in the market or you work with builders, like these are just things that you need to be able to keep an eye on.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We are at your favorite part.
Okay. You're
of this in conclusion for the article that you liked.
Okay, before we can do the conclusion, can we talk about I got an interesting stat on consumer confidence.
Yeah.
Also from the same article from the preamble. It said the uncertainty created by on again, off again tariffs, since we were still on that.
On, off.
We don't know. We don't know. We're turning it on, we're turning it off. Is already affecting consumer behavior. The closely watched University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index shows consumer confidence fell for a fourth consecutive month. So this is April. So basically all of 2025. Plunging to its second lowest level in more than 70 years. Yeah. So consumer confidence is not good.
It's not.
The 11% decrease from March represents one of the sharpest declines on record. So this is okay. And it said the anxiety is creating a two-sided problem. First, there is so-called panic buying.
Yeah.
People are rushing to purchase goods before prices rise. Said Apple saw spending surge 20%.
Wow.
In early April compared to recent months. Grocery purchases of canned vegetables jumped 23% and instant coffee 20%.
Gotta have the coffee.
Gotta have your coffee in the 5 days following Trump's April 2nd tariff announcement. Okay, second, there's the potential for future spending freeze. So they're buying a bunch of stuff now.
Yes.
Which you said. When I talk to companies, they're more worried about people who are not going to buy. A retail analyst, this guy, Simon, a retail analyst, he says, that's it. I mean, are they not going to buy?
Right.
Right now they're buying.
Yeah.
Are they going to stop buying?
In preparation.
Okay. All right. You can do yours now.
There's just all sorts of behavior out there. So, and I think the behavior depends on each person's individual situation.
Yeah.
If you have savings and you're able to go out and replace your appliances and get the new couch and buy your car and do all the things you need to do before maybe everything goes up. And then some people are like, even if I wanted to do that, I couldn't do that right now.
I can't do that right now.
I can't do that right now. Yeah. So I'm just going to have to wait and take it day by day and figure it out and see what we need to do. So it's bringing out everybody's different personality and their different money behaviors, depending on what they're able and capable of doing. But at the end of the day, the main, I wrote down a quote. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
It was a really good quote. And I did want to end on a little bit of a positive.
Oh, I love that.
No. Where's my quote? Okay, here it is. So Jay Scott said, regardless of what's going on in the world, real estate is still the single best hedge against inflation and recession, more than any other asset on the planet.
Right.
When it comes to inflation and recession speaking.
Okay.
So does that mean everybody's going to go buy and sell houses? No, that it doesn't mean that. It just means that the actual housing market will survive.
Your investment is more stable.
Your investment is more stable. Your income as a realtor is not.
Right.
Which is the strong and resilient and wise.
The wise.
Will thrive is what all the data is showing us. So where do you fall in that category, right? Everybody needs to be asking that question of, am I prepared for the next few years?
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows?
Give us the conclusion.
The conclusion is your article.
Okay. Well, look, I went to my friend ChatGPT.
It's actually really good.
And I said, tell me how the economy impacts the real estate market like I'm a fifth grader.
Let's explain this to a fifth grader.
That's what we're doing. All right, go.
Okay. So money stuff. Okay.
Interest rates.
Let's talk about money stuff, the interest rates. When borrowing money is cheap, people want to buy houses. When it's expensive, people buy fewer houses because their monthly payment goes up. The candy bar example fell in right here.
Okay, perfect.
Number 2, jobs and paychecks, also known as
employment.
Okay. If people have jobs and are making money, they feel safe buying homes.
Okay.
If lots of people lose jobs, they wait to buy or sell because they are nervous about money. Example, if your parents are making more money, they might say, let's just get a bigger house. If not, they might say, let's wait, you're going to share a room and we're getting bunk beds.
All those bunk beds.
I have this one listing for sale right now that has this bedroom in it that's super cute, but it has 2 built-in bunk beds and it's so cute. But I just keep thinking about that because it's 4 kids in one room, you know? Okay, number 3, price of stuff, also known as
inflation.
When the price of things like food, gas, and building materials go up, it affects home prices. Builders charge more money and houses cost more.
Please give the 5th grade example. It's so cute.
If it costs more to build a tree house because wood is expensive, it's the same with real houses.
Right. If items are more expensive, they're all more expensive.
Graders going, yeah, my tree house. Yeah, can't do that. It's expensive. Number 4, people's feelings.
Confidence.
Yes, this is consumer confidence. If people feel good about the economy, they're more likely to buy or sell homes. If they feel scared or unsure, they will wait. Example, when it's stormy outside.
I didn't read this one. This is funny.
Cute. If it's stormy outside, you don't want to go to recess. You just want to stay in. Adults do that too with money decisions. It's like, can you imagine a kid not wanting to go to recess?
No, it's
everybody
scary
wants to
out
buy
there.
Stuff, but not if it's storming.
Right.
Okay, number 5, big changes. Things like what?
COVID or wars.
Or tariffs. Or
some giant,
other economies.
Huge tariffs.
Yes, okay. Sometimes huge things happen in the world that affect the economy and real estate, like a virus, a war, new government rules. Example, during COVID, lots of people worked from home and wanted bigger houses, so the market changed quickly. So I hope this was a good educational summary of what's going on in the world. I hope we brought it to you in a very, neutral.
Yes, and digestible
perspective, just so that you can understand how your career is impacted, how real estate will be impacted, what you can tell your clients. Feel free to send them this
What
episode.
are you telling your clients? Do you have any talking points as of lately?
I've said a lot of times the real estate crystal ball has never been fuzzier.
Yeah, I do like that one.
The days on market is going to be a bit higher, so we need to just prepare for that. And if it sells quickly, great. We're going to need to really do our homework on the front end. I'm putting a lot of pressure on my sellers to be the cleanest, best stage.
It is non-negotiable at this point.
Non-negotiable.
I have had sellers having to be reactive based on feedback, lack of showings, whatever. And I'm like, it's not the price. These buyers want it literally pristine.
Yeah.
It must be perfect.
Yes. 100%.
Okay.
So it's just impacting my delivery. In fact, I had a girl call me yesterday and she's like, I want to let you know I'm interviewing 3 agents.
Live it up.
And I said, I think that's very wise of you. She said, and I just want to see, what price you think. And I said, if that's what you're basing
you probably don't need my
your
interview
decision on, you may not need my interview, because I am basing my pricing off of market data and the economy. And your neighborhood at this time has a very high day on market. And so I don't know if you're going to like my price.
And did you schedule an interview?
I'm going today after I meet with you.
Yeah. What?
But when she said that, I felt like there was a piece of her that wanted to be like, you better know you're competing. And I wanted to be like,
great.
I need another
at
listing.
This point,
like,
you need a hole in the head.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm like. At this point, I'm like, you better know, Mr. or Mrs. Seller.
Yeah.
You're competing for me to decide if I even want to take this.
Right.
Do I even want to? Because it is wearing me out right now.
The last thing I need is a seller that's not going to do their homework and not going to listen on pricing.
And want it to be overpriced.
You can't work with me. I'm not going to work with you. I cannot actually do it anymore. And would you believe that ever since I got fed up and started taking that stance the last few weeks, I've gotten more listings.
You're like, this is
backfiring. Not really, because they're listening.
They do. As long as they follow.
They are.
You're like, look, I don't need your listing.
Right.
Because I cannot accommodate another listing that is sitting. That is too much work at this point.
I wish I could trade like 5 of my listings for 5 buyers right now.
Boy, if we could tell your past self this, you'd be like, no way.
No way would I take 5 buyers right now.
You'd be like, that's not right.
It's like with sellers, we do what we can, but at the end of the day, it's out of your control on if you can't make someone buy it.
I know. And I've had some really high anxiety sellers this in 2025. And I must say, they're asking all of the time, why? And I'm like, if I could answer that question, I would be happy to.
Yeah.
But I cannot.
It's just the market that we're in right now. We're looking at it's taking longer.
Yeah.
So at least the buyers, I feel, are getting closing costs covered majority of the time.
Yeah.
Sellers are being more reasonable with repairs. I mean, it seems like a buyer would be in a good position, which is why I wish I had some buyers.
I feel like it's a buyer's market. In our area.
In our area, for sure. Yeah.
What was the positive thing you ended on?
That quote.
Oh, about your real estate.
Yeah. Real estate is the single best hedge against inflation and recession, more than any other asset class on the planet.
Yeah.
And there will be some good days sprinkled in. It'll just, everything is so up and down. And now is the time more than ever that you're operating in a professional manner, and that your lender partner is more important now than ever.
I agree.
Now is not the time to choose the lender based on where they take you to lunch.
Correct.
In fact, my lender that I use it's so funny because people are like, I've offered to take you to lunch and I've offered to do this. And I'm like, that's not what I look for in a lender.
No.
I'm looking for someone that doesn't have time to take me to lunch.
Yeah.
Because they're busy serving my clients.
Right.
And they're busy researching the market and sending me updates so that when I'm asked these questions, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
That is what's important right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the other good news is, everything is cyclical. Mm-hmm. Our little inchworm is going to be a little butterfly soon. Mm-hmm. We just have to hang in there.
Yeah, just hang in there.
It's going to be okay.
Okay. Should we do a toast?
Yeah.
All right, great. I'm going to do my news desk. News is over.
So many pages.
So many pages of nice paper.
Hi, this is Elena from San Antonio, Texas and Dallas, Texas, and I am toasting Cordelia Guevara with eXp Realty in San Antonio. Cordy, you have been such an inspiration to me of building a referral-based business, and I am so proud of all of your success. Thank you for being an amazing inspiration.